Hi, welcome to another StudioX automation. Let's see today's use case. So we have this Excel file with the supplier's information, and the information is under three columns as internal name, external name, and industry. And we have these three supplier information, and we want to put this value into this particular web page. And how we are doing this is by clicking on the new supplier button, and the internal name should be picked from this particular column. So this is how it will go, and the external name should be coming from this column. And then the industry will come from this. So energy is what we have to choose from the drop down and click on the save button, and that's how it will create a new entry of the supplier, which we have recently done. So this is the new entry. So this is what we have to automate using the StudioX. We have to create these three new suppliers in this particular web page. Let's jump to the StudioX. For this, first let's use the Excel file to connect with a supplier Excel file. Browse the path where your file locally is saved. So this is my path. So now I've connected with the Excel file. Now within the Excel file, I have to iterate through each row. So for each of these rows, I have to create a supplier, right? So for this, we have an activity called for each row. So under the Excel card, you can see for each Excel row. Drop it. It should be within the use Excel file resource. So it should be within this scope. So for each of your current row, what you are supposed to do. And yes, don't forget to choose the headers. So it implies that your first row is headers. It is not the supplier information. So that's why you have to put this as a check mark. Now, next thing we have to do that for each of these rows, we have to connect to this particular portal and create a supplier. So inside this scope, I'll use another resource, which is use application browser. So to connect to the web application, we have to use this. Now indicate where your application is. So this is my web page. Click anywhere and it will capture your web page. So here is the URL auto-populated and your screenshot. Now within this, first thing that we have to do is by clicking on the new supplier button. So I'll use a click activity, drag it, it should be within this particular resource. So whatever activities we are going to perform is with this browser. So make sure that you are putting all these subsequent activities in this browser resource. So first I have to do is click on this new supplier. So this is my target, identified, click, and then once it searches all the selectors, click on confirm. So we are done with the clicking. So next thing that we are supposed to do, let's do this manually so that the form opens. Now next thing is we have to put the value in these fields, for which we have to use an activity called type into. So go to the activities panel and search for the activity known as type into. Here it is, put it after this. And now indicate where you want to type. So this is where you want to type. And now this is your target and this is your anchor. So it uniquely identifies where your text box is. So once you're okay, click on confirm. So why we need an anchor is because we have 2 to 3 text boxes. So to identify the robot, uniquely that which particular text box where you want to type, you are using another, element known as anchor. So once we are done with this, just click on the confirm button. So now what you want to type is what you have to mention here. Before that, we forgot that while we are reading the Excel file, we have to mention the range. So here, click on the plus button, go to Excel and mention sheet 1 is from where you want to read. So if you go to Excel, sheet 1 is where you want to read. So this is our range. Now from that particular range, in this particular range, now here the internal name should be coming from your internal name column, right? So go to StudioX and in the type this value, click on the plus button, and from the current row, you want to type the internal name. So this is what you have to choose. Now next is to populate your this field. Again, you have to use a type into activity. So after this sequentially, indicate where you want to type. So this is where you want to type. This is your target. And this is your anchor. We are done. And let's click on confirm. Now what you want to type is click on the plus button. From your Excel's current row, the column name is external name, and whatever value the current row has under this column is what we want to type. So now we are done. Next thing is we have to select a value from this particular drop down, right? So for which we already know we have an activity called select item if you want to select anything from the drop down. So let's use this activity after this. And here it is. Indicate where your drop down is, and here I am clicking. So now you will see the error. The indicated target is not a valid UI element for the select item action, which means that this particular field and the activity are not supported. So for this, we have to figure out a workaround. Click on the escape button so that you are back to your workflow. So select item is not going to work in our case. Now, what could be the another workaround? If you see, how do you do it manually? One is you click and you choose the value from the drop down. What is the another way that you do is you click and then you use a keyboard shortcut, which is a down key, and click on enter. So this is your another way of putting the value into this drop down. So this is what we are going to use now. So let's refresh our drop down page. So here we are at the industry. Now, what are the two values we have? We have energy and the engineering. So for which now, if you want to choose the energy, you have to click and 1, 2, 3, right? 3 down buttons and 1 enter button, right? If you want to choose the engineering, again, you will have to press 1 more down button and then enter. So this is what we are going to code right now. Before that, I will also mention that before you use the keyboard shortcuts on this particular field, you have to click and highlight this particular field, for which you will be using two activities. Let's quickly see. One is the mouse hover activity. So it hovers the mouse over a specified UI element. So here it is, indicate where you want to hover. So this is our field, this is the target, and this is the anchor. Once we are done, click on confirm button. So duration is for how long you want to hover on that particular field. So let's say for 1 second. So this particular field takes value in the form of number and in the form of seconds. So for 1 second, we want to hover. Next thing that we want to do is that we want to click on that particular field. So let's go back. And after we are done with hovering, we want to click. So here you select the target again and the anchor and click on confirm. Now, once you are done, with this, now you have to identify whether you have to choose energy or the engineering. So as per the value from this particular column, you have to decide how many down buttons you have to press, for which we will be using an activity called switch. So here you go. So as per the switch, what is the expression based on what condition you want to perform some kind of actions? So your decision value is this, energy or the engineering, right? So you click on plus button, current row, industry. So we are deciding based on the value from this particular column. Leave a default value as it is and add a new case as energy. So this is a first case. So if the industry column has a value called energy, then what we want to do is go back to this particular card and use keyboard shortcuts. So if the value from that particular column is energy, then we want the keyboard shortcut, use the shortcut manually option. Then how many down buttons we have to choose is click 1, 2, 3, right? 3 down buttons and 1 enter button. Let's do this into the StudioX. So we have 3 down buttons. So here we have 1 down button and the second and the third down button, and then we have to choose one enter, right? So here is your enter button. So keep choosing the keyboard shortcuts and click on add, and it will create a sequence. So we have 3 down buttons and 1 enter button. The column value is energy. Now our next use case is if the value is engineering, right? So here you go, add a new case. If the value is engineering, then what we have to do is again keyboard shortcut and a manual shortcut. And this time, how many we want is energy. Next is engineering. So +1, right? So to the StudioX. Now in the energy we had 3, it should had now 4. So we are going to choose 4 down, 1. Here you go as 2, 3 and 4, and then 1 enter button. So there you go, we are done. Now similarly you can create these switch conditions for the other use cases as well. If the banking, if communication, then 2 down buttons, education 3 down buttons, for example, like this, right? So but right now we are only considering these 2, so let's keep it within that particular scope. So now once we are done with this, next thing that we have to do is we have to click on the save button, right? So go to StudioX and then use an activity called click. So there you go. Here is your click, indicate where. So here is the save button. Once is identified the anchor, so click on confirm. Once you click on confirm, and here is your automation workflow completed. So if you see it, so you attached your Excel file, or you connected with your Excel file, you were reading it, and then for each of your Excel row, you are going to the browser and you are putting the value from the current row into these fields, right? And clicking on the save button finally. Let's see how the automation performs. I'll keep this tab open and yes, click on the run button. There we go. And the bot has started. This is our first supplier being added, and the first one is energy. And then click on the save button. Yeah, this is a second supplier now. And again, the drop down, click and shortcut keys till engineering and click on save. Another supplier, IP provider and UiPath. Again, we have the keyboard shortcuts and selected, saved, and the last unsuccessful. That's all.